Welcome to SwitchCorner, my name is Alex, and today we're going to be taking a look at Aztech the Forgotten Gods on the Nintendo Switch. This one, it's been high up on my most anticipated releases for early 2022, but is it worth your time, or is this one better off forgotten? Well, hit subscribe, but join us here on SwitchCorner for reviews and deals near daily, and let's get started. Aztech the Forgotten Gods tells the story of a young woman battling colossal forgotten gods. Why her mother, a researcher of sorts, lacks parenting skills and decides her daughter should try on a large ancient fist of sorts to see what secrets it contains and whether there's any sort of reaction. Well, it turns out there is. These gods awaken and attack your town. Now you are left to battle it out. Throughout, we learn of our lead's past, family troubles, and that scenario of the hero that doesn't necessarily believe they have what it takes to save the day. That scenario is what it escalates. Your mother's trapped, you need to free her by defeating 6 gods. There's one god that's basically, merged themselves with you, so it's a voice in your head. I like the idea, I like the Mesoamerican metropolis and that overall theme, but the delivery, it's a little lacking. There's a few translation quirks at times, but also I'd describe it often as cheesy, struggling to really convey the intensity of a scene with its writing. Gameplay is interesting. This game, it's essentially a third-person boss rush experience. Think here No More Heroes 103, which I feel makes for a very close and fair comparison. That is, in the sense the gameplay revolves around boss encounters, but it allows you to explore this world before war commences. During this time, you can also fight the smaller battles scattered around the map in return for rewards. This weapon that you now leverage, that massive fist, it gives you a few abilities, but what will immediately stand out, the opportunity to fly with a push of the trigger. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but no input on a joystick causes you to fly directly upwards, while pushing on the joystick will start to move you forward. It's fast stuff that gives the location a good sense of scale and freedom. In this world, you'll even have a few locations to visit: your home, a research facility where your mother is trapped behind some sort of force field, and a location to add upgrades. It's a basic skill tree that requires very little in the way of grinding, but think here, some early examples: the ability to wall run to charge your gauntlet. Flying and combat works on a stamina system, so this is absolutely necessary, or even think a down slam attack. As I said, it's not the most detailed of skill trees, but there's some good stuff in here, and a few of them will absolutely be required to move the game forward. One particular encounter, for example, it requires that down slam attack so you can make your way through the building. Combat then is, for 90% of the experience, a single button, hit Y, and watch our lead create a path of destruction. Later in the game though, it will slowly open up. There's a slash attack being an early example. Sadly though, and this is where it kind of goes wrong, this game, it has a ton of issues that I just cannot ignore. The combat, it works on a targeting system. When the game locks on, you hit Y and she automatically homes in on the enemy selected. It lacks any skill at all and quickly turns into a button masher. Even boss moments, they try to introduce a few extra mechanics, figure out the weakness, but even there it falls very short of many in this genre. The creativity is often nothing more than, as I said, highlighting a standout area to attack, or maybe, let's say, hitting a switch. It has 3 difficulty options too, but we'll get onto this next. The camera is not up to the task of supporting those that want to check out hard, so I definitely stick to easy or normal. So with that auto lock-on system and the fact she homes in so quickly, you're going to struggle to work out what is happening on screen. If that auto lock hasn't got you completely lost though, then the camera is here to finish the job. It just goes crazy at nearly all times. It loses our hero frequently, it stutters with movement, but not that kind of, dramatic camera shake. It just feels a little bit too sensitive. And often then the camera will be clipping in and out of the environment or your enemy. A good portion of my time, it wasn't trying to understand what was happening, I just kept on pressing Y. It's not just the combat either with the camera. The flying, that works relatively well, honestly, and I enjoyed that, but there's some poor design decisions, like a location with tiny corridors, meaning you rarely know what is in front of you, or the camera again gets completely lost or trapped in the world. When you're not in battle against the enemies then, expect to be battling against the environment. You quickly unlock an ability, for example, to hold onto ledges. Often this gets you trapped in the world. Some objects you can simply fly through and get trapped, and at one point, a staircase that I just walked down, I flew straight through. It was fine with on ground, steps, but not the flying element. I had to actually fly out as well. Walking found me completely trapped. The open world then, there's very little to do here. You'll meet up with friends occasionally or the mother to push the story forward, but there's nothing really to see that I could find. It's a repetitive design with the occasional optional fight against the same kind of grunt opponents that open the game, and they are here throughout. Even at this point, having finished the game, honestly, I'm still not quite sure what their attacks are because it was so incredibly difficult to translate what was happening on screen. I wish I had more positives to say. I really struggled to find too many elements though here to recommend. The flying is good fun. They did a good job of the frame rate as well. It's mostly stable for the entire experience. But the rest, it just doesn't seem the camera is up to the task, and there's more than a few bugs with an undercooked combat system. It's a game where I can see the good intentions, and I really like the overall idea and theme, but it's fallen drastically short in execution. It's one of those games where just occasionally you'll get a glimpse of what it could have been. It works for a split second and you'll be like, yes, I get it. But for me, my time was mostly disappointed just in the overall, experience. Aztech the Forgotten Gods, and I want to be nice, but this is, it's one of the ugliest games I've seen on the Switch in a long time. It's clear that to get this running, they needed to scale things back, but it's rendered the world lifeless. Not that there's much here to do, as I said. It's pixelated though, it feels low resolution, and there's simply a lack of detail. It's just so repetitive. The battles fare a bit better. I think the boss designs are nice, and there's a few standout cutscenes as well throughout. But yeah, if the camera's not going crazy, you'll quickly notice a ton of clipping and our lead generally going through the environments. The battles, they fare a little bit better. I think the boss designs are really nice, and then there's a few standout cutscenes as well that drive the story forward. Apart from that though, the camera's typically going crazy, so you'll quickly notice a ton of clipping and our lead generally just going through the environments. To finish graphics on a positive though, look, our lead has a great design. I love the character, I love the weapon, but yeah, it's a shame. Trailers that I've seen, they were clearly on next-gen hardware. I was getting almost that cel-shaded vibe to it all, but that has not translated to the Nintendo Switch. Audio finally, and the music, it's pretty good, but there seems to be a bug with it where it distorts and cuts out, especially during the boss encounters. The more action that occurs, the more the music seems to stumble. There's a good selection of sound effects then for the attacks and flight, but it still needs more. The world, it's visually empty, so we need the audio to kind of step up and fill it out. Finally, voice acting, there is none, but they make these grunt sounds, and they are incredibly repetitive, incredibly annoying. Overall, I really wanted to like this one. In fact, I was excited for it. It's been high up on my list since I saw the first trailer, which makes it all of the more disappointing. Lazy combat is backed by a camera that has no idea what it's doing, and the boss encounters, they lack on the creativity front for gameplay, unlike their incredible at times visual design. I wanted to walk away today with some positives, but it's going to be a tough one for you to pick up without, preparing yourself for these shortcomings. The camera for me is the big thing, and that will be very difficult to correct with a patch, but hopefully they can at least do something about the clipping, the bugs, the audio issues, and yeah, if they can at least do that, it might be a little bit easier to digest. I will give it this though, I got through it, it didn't crash at all, but I didn't particularly care for its story at the same time. With all of the issues, this is not easy for me to say today, as I said, high up on my list of anticipated games, but a bad 3 out of 10. There's too many good boss rush games out there that you should turn to first. Cuphead, Fury, No More Heroes for something very similar, and then the price point here, $30 or your regional equivalent, it is just way off the mark. I think the worst decision this game made, the idea of an open world. It should have stuck to the boss rush formula while adding maybe story cutscenes in between. This means then they could make the combat the best it could have been, because I can't say there was a single highlight in my moments of exploration with the world. It was just one fetch quest after another just so I could get to that next fight. That said, I'm sure that still took a huge amount of resources that probably could have been used better elsewhere. I will keep you all updated as we hear more on patches and tweaks. There's definitely a good game and good idea in here, it's just a long way from being realised. Will you be adding this one to the library, or are you holding onto that cash? A shout out then to the patrons of the channel who are going above and beyond to support SwitchCorner. It helps more than you know, so thank you all so much. Then hit subscribe if you love the Switch, as much as we all do here. Join our growing family, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.